Welcome to Culmination, where we're not experts, but we sure have a lot to say. In the process of becoming our best self, I have with me the golf player, Gus Weyand, to discuss competitiveness. And with that said, let's get started. So, Gus, what is competitiveness?
I think competitiveness is like the drive to be better than somebody else. Sometimes that can be healthy and unhealthy, sort of depending on your circumstance that it's in. So yeah, that's about it for the definition. I know that we'll sort of dive into like what's good competitiveness and what's bad competitiveness, but I think the foundation is the drive to be better than somebody else. Sometimes in sports that can be a good thing, and in like life in general, I feel like you need to have a base level competitiveness, but if it gets too competitive, the people around you sort of start to not like you too much. My feelings on that, yeah.
Yeah, so why do we feel that need to compete?
I think it's just a natural like urge to be better than somebody else. So if you're playing sports, obviously you don't want to lose, and if you're in life and the person sitting next to you has more money and you want to sell more of whatever you're selling, you want to be better than that person so you can have a better car or a better house or a better life. I just feel like that's what everybody wants, is just to be better than somebody else.
Is it necessarily being better than somebody else or just being better in a general sense?
I think a lot of times competitiveness it drives you to be better, but I think the base level of where it comes from is to be better than somebody else. And sometimes that can be healthy and make you better in the process and potentially someone else better. But I think the base level is just going to be the need to be better than somebody else. Yeah.
But I don't know, but why?
So I think why is just, that's like human instinct.
Or is it specifically jealousy or envy?
I think jealousy and envy definitely does play a part in it. Yeah, I mean the base. If you're not a jealous person, you probably don't look at the car and the house and stuff like that. So less jealous people would probably have a tendency to be less competitive as a whole.
I feel like there's a lot to that, but it's hard to exactly.
Yeah, it is a little bit hard to kind of elaborate.
Right, because it's not always jealous. Like, we can get into sports, for an example. Like, it's not exactly that you're jealous of someone's ability, so you want to stick it to them.
Yeah. I think sometimes it can be isolated as like competitive jealousy, and other times it's just competitiveness and that feeling to be better. But I don't necessarily think they're related. They're probably two different topics, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of times in life, I think it's the jealousy part with the example I use with a car. If you've got let's say a cheap Toyota from the 2000s or the 90s or whatever, and somebody's got a brand new Beamer sitting next to you, you're probably going to be like, man, I wish I could have that car. But if you're playing around and for example, basketball, if you're playing one-on-one with somebody and you're in there up, you just want to win. It's not necessarily the them being better than you as a whole with the car.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So there's two types of competitiveness in that regard. There's a status element, or just natural tendency to want more in life, I guess. And then you can run into jealousy when it comes to somebody else having more than you.
Yeah.
Or an arrogance if you meet someone who has less than you.
Definitely. The arrogance part is definitely something that at a certain point drives you. It's almost another level of competitiveness where you feel like you're so much better than somebody else. You just want to get better and better and better. And that's what leads to increased levels of arrogance, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would make sense, just because it's you want to constantly, or if you think about a bully, they always try to one up themselves.
Exactly. So it's almost a self-competitiveness, which in some, it's the same thing. In some cases, that's good for you, and in some cases, that's bad for you.
Right.
Sometimes it can kind of eat yourself alive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because it's like I'm inadequate or something.
Yeah, 3 hours a day and still wasn't satisfied with Microsoft.
Unfortunately, this part got cut out, but now we're just going to transition into where we're talking about how we've become too competitive in certain situations.
Baseball, I play golf now. But in baseball, I definitely used to be like a hyper competitive type of person. And I remember one time I broke my batting helmet because I struck out and slammed it against the wall. And yeah, that's not necessarily something you like want to do. And I think that type of competitiveness sort of eats you alive sometimes. That's the example I was telling Casey about before the podcast. I sort of mentioned it quickly, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that coin, like there's like a little powerlifting group that I'm a part of. Yusef Sadat, who was on the podcast before, as well as Ian Minton and Clint Beeler, who are all seniors at Sycamore with me. We sort of like, we're all powerlifting sort of to start going to the gym and stuff like that. And I think the competitiveness around our like group made us all get better, but it wasn't necessarily like wanting to be so much better and like crush the other person. It was sort of a healthy competitiveness to where we just all wanted to get better as a group, and we were rooting for someone else, but we still wanted to kind of one up them that was driving us forward.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's so interesting because, or like to break down like specifically all of these dynamics going on, because you're first of all, you're friends and you're kind of like a group, you're a team, you all have the same goals and everything. So you're of course supporting each other, you're collaborating as each of you have your own strengths and weaknesses and knowledge of how to do the certain techniques or what is good for a diet, or just all these factoids that you know of. And you can boost each other up, but at the same time you're competitive within each other to kind of keep everybody in line, essentially. Like if you lag behind, you're going to be worse than us, and if I lag behind, then I'm going to be worse than you. So we got to be the best.
Definitely both levels of competitiveness with yourself and with somebody else, but I think the healthy part is also wanting like other people to get better, and that's where the friend group kind of comes in, or like a team. Like if you were I guess we'll bring it back to baseball. The guy ahead of you is like doing bad and your team is sort of losing because of that. You want him to get better, like you're on the same team. And like our powerlifting group, I feel like we're all on the same team, but yet there's like a competitiveness among us.
Right. It's also like it's basically the same thing, whether you're an individual or in a group. Because when you're just thinking about your own individual attributes in a sport or something, what's a sport where it's really just you alone? Maybe tennis.
I suppose golf is as close to a sport as you could get with that, maybe. Because high school is a little bit different, because in high school golf you're sort of on the same team, but yet there's an individual aspect to it because it's also a team game and an individual game at the same time. But once you get up to the pro ranks, it's all individual, so it's almost, I mean, it definitely is competition with yourself, and you just have to drive yourself to get better. But yet there's so many other teams, because in golf there can be hundreds of people in tournaments, so you've got hundreds of teams that you're going against. Yet the foundation, the only person stopping you basically is yourself.
Right. Well, I was going to say that as an individual, it's like you have to take care of yourself, make sure that you're getting better, and you're against somebody else or another group. And when you're in a group, it's kind of like the same thing, but instead of just taking care of yourself, you have to take care of and account for everybody else on your team.
Yeah.
With the common enemy as the group.
Yeah, definitely. So you want your group to get better, but you also sort of want to be the best in your group. So it's a little bit deeper than just against somebody else.
Right. It's just all these it's kind of just like a power dynamic. You want to be the best.
Yeah. And some people
yeah.
have a higher power dynamic than somebody or some other people, because we were talking about the difference between potentially like you and me. Like, I might be a more competitive natured person than you, and that's just, I mean, it's not necessarily based off anything, but yeah.
Well, it's just like the natures of us. Like, you would probably want to, like, if you and I were playing sports, which we actually do, we play like recreational baseball with each other and
Yes.
a couple friends of ours. I mean, I can't speak for you, obviously, so hopefully you can correct me, but you might want to take it more seriously or be more competitive with it, while I'm mainly trying to keep the morale up and help my team and kind of just have fun with everybody.
Yeah. So that's where the progression, since I stopped playing competitive sports, really, I mean, I did play golf in senior year, but I wasn't nearly as competitive as I was in junior year. So I've sort of learned to adapt that sort of just have fun with it kind of mentality, as opposed to the hyper competitive person that I may have used to be and still am at some points. But
What made you change exactly?
Because it's just not nearly as fun to play sports when you're always trying to be better than somebody else. And at a certain point, you just want to have fun with it and like enjoy the company around you. And as I got closer to not playing competitive sports anymore, I sort of recognized that the end was coming and that like I needed to do something else and have more fun with it while I could still do it.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, that's where that came from, is like one day I'm not going to be in this situation anymore, and I need to enjoy the guys around me for the time that I'm still around them.
Because it's like you're not going to be pursuing sports in the future as like a
Yeah.
career.
No. So that was probably one of the last times I'll be on a competitive sports team, and I just wanted to enjoy it because I like the guys that I played with, and I wanted them to get better as well as me, but I wasn't necessarily like hyper competitive against an opposing party anymore.
Right. And of course, it's like nuanced with our natures. Like, maybe you are naturally competitive, maybe you aren't. But there's like, there's parts of us that want to be more competitive at times, and other times where we want to be more collaborative, like how you feel concern for your teammates if they're lagging behind or something. Because even me, like when I play baseball, I try to like regulate these feelings, but sometimes I get too into it. Like,
Exactly.
you might not notice it, but it's just like if I am just having a hard time swinging a good hit, I just get mad, dude.
Yeah, you can notice it with everybody. It's not just you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I try to push it down because I don't wanna get into these moods that I used to be really bad with. Like, I used to, as soon as I would open the, Pandora's box of being self-deprecating, it would just unleash this horrible thing where it's like, "Alright, here we go. I'm just beating myself up now, and I don't like it," and I start being annoying to everybody else because they have to hear me whine. I haven't done that in years, but I noticed that during one of our recent outings, and I was just like, "Oh crap, I cannot let that happen again." It's like that part of me that I thought I lost after so long. It was like I was born with that, but I just did a good job as I developed over time to like push that down, but I guess it is still a part of me, you know?
Yeah. I
I
think
just have to get better.
I think that competitiveness, like when it starts to sort of annoy other people, is definitely like a bad aspect of it, which a lot of people can control. And I mean, you're gonna have those like spots where it happens, and you can't really do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. A little quick story, another hyper competitive moment of mine, but like in golf, there are like bunkers, which are like sand traps. They're kind of hard to get out of, and they're sort of different at
Oh yeah,
at every golf course. So it was like the last hole of the tournament. I was in front of everybody, including the athletic director at Sycamore. I forget his name now, but yeah. Anyway, like I bladed it. Basically, I hit it way too far over the green into a hazard, and I started like throwing clubs and like cussing all around right in front of like hundreds of people, right?
Oh God.
Yeah, so that's the reason the athletic director doesn't like me anymore. Is that but my point of the story is that everybody sort of has those hyper competitive moments, and you just need to sort of learn to have less of them, and then everybody around you can have more fun at the sport, which I mean that's way more aggressive than whatever you when you just explain it, where it's a little bit of complaining. That's fine. I mean everybody has those moments, but yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody handles it differently. Like you might just feel this sheer rage where you have to throw stuff and get angry and curse. Well, I mean, I definitely feel that inside, but I think
Yeah.
what I express to people out loud is more of just like self-deprecation of like I
Yeah.
can't do this. I suck. And it's like I already told this story of a recent outing where I wasn't hitting the best. But if you break down that entire night of my like basically how well I did, sure I didn't hit the best, but I don't think I struck out that many times. I might have once, but I still hit the ball for the most part. It wasn't that bad. And also I had some great like fielding moments. Like did you see
Yeah.
that one where I caught that like really high
Oh,
ball?
the pop fly?
Yeah.
I do think I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that was just so sweet. And then there's this moment with Hassan, who was also he was in the meeting episode of this podcast. Um it was like a play and somebody was running to second and Hassan was on second. And I I didn't catch the fly and then it dropped and it was like rolling and then I got it quickly and then threw like a really awkward shot to Hassan and he was holding his glove in a really weird way, like holding it up like a cup, and it just
Yeah.
happened to land there and the dude got out. It might have been
Yeah.
you, was it? Was it you?
Sometimes. What do you say?
Was it you that got out?
I don't know. I don't remember, but
Oh, but it
yeah,
was like
I do
it,
remember that play.
yeah.
So it might have been.
It felt like a split second. Like I feel like I lost consciousness for a second, and then when I
Yeah.
regained it, everybody just stopped, and we saw the ball in his glove, and we were like, "Holy shit! We just got him out."
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy, man.
That's what sports is. It's always like there's those moments that just keep you coming back.
Right. I have to agree.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, when you think about that, those nice experiences, and also the fact that I don't actually suck in actuality.
No, you're
I
pretty
just
good.
said actually twice, but you know, how can I just say, "Oh wow, I suck," or be self-deprecating? Like it's completely false.
Yeah. I mean, you have those good moments and those bad moments, and sometimes you remember the bad moments more than you remember the good moments. I think that's an
Mhm.
actual like scientific thing because like if you remember the bad moments, then you're like less likely to repeat them or whatever. So
Yeah, it's like survival skills.
yeah, yeah.
But
But
it's
that's just how your brain is wired. It's like it remembers the bad moments more than the good moments. You just have to make an effort to highlight the good moments when you've had a bad day or whatever.
right. And that's an aspect of competitiveness that can be
Yeah.
bad. Like when you think of it, when
When you
you think
start,
of oh, what was that?
go ahead.
Okay, when you think of competitiveness as like all or nothing, I'm putting all of the chips in. Like this defines my worth. If you succeed, you feel like a god, and I'm not gonna like undermine that. You really do feel that immense power. But if you fail, oh boy,
Yeah.
you lost everything.
Uh-huh.
So
That's
what were
where
you gonna say?
that's where it starts like balling up, is you have all those good moments in a row, and then you have that one bad moment, and all the bad moments that you've had on the good days just all come back at one time, and you just
Yeah,
feel bad, and then the competitiveness just starts getting worse because you want to get all those good moments back.
right.
Yeah.
And when we're in those kinds of situations, how do we get out?
You just gotta highlight the good things that happen, like you catching or you dropping the fly ball but still getting the guy out. Like you gotta highlight that as a good moment in your day. You
Right.
can't just say, oh my gosh, I struck out whatever 2 times. I have no idea if that's correct or not, but anyway, we'll just
Yeah,
use
yeah.
that as an example. But I struck out 2 times, but I made an amazing play. Just remember that amazing play, and then you just keep coming back. I feel like that's the aspect of competitiveness. If you remember all the good moments, you start to lose the bad ones, and you start to enjoy what you're doing a little bit more.
Right. And when you keep going, you realize that you're gonna get better.
Exactly. No matter how much, like if you do things, you got to just put in your 10,000 hours to be as good as you can.
Right. Is
Like
that
if
your
there's pitfalls along the way, you just got to get in them, get it out of them.
right? Is that your Malcolm Gladwell contribution?
Is that a Malcolm Gladwell quote?
The 10,000 hour rule?
Oh, I don't know who that's from, but I definitely heard that somewhere. That's not mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's from one of his books.
Okay.
Um,
Good quote, though. Give him
yeah.
credit for that one.
Um, so wait, I want to go back to this real quick. It doesn't have to do with anything, but I'm just really curious. When you when you smashed your helmet, did you like bang your head on something with the helmet, or did you just like
No.
put your helmet on the ground and smash it with the bat?
So I had taken the helmet off. I think I struck out. And this was a season where I was doing very good, which also brings us back to that other point where you remember the bad things and not so much the good things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So I struck out, and it was like the maybe I only struck out like 2 or 3 times that whole season. So it was like one of the worst like at bats or whatever. So
Yeah.
I came back to the dugout, I took it off and just slammed it against the wall, and it cracked in half.
Ugh.
Yeah, which I mean, thank God I didn't actually slam my head against the wall. I'm not that dumb, but yeah.
Yeah. Did everybody just watch? Like
I think
what
it was the
happened?
end of an inning, so like there were only a couple people in the dugout, but everybody was like, "Holy shit!" Because I was in 8th grade at the time too. I was like 5'5", 100 pounds, sopping wet. Like I wasn't exactly a big kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
Uh,
just gets to you sometimes.
right. Um, so how did you or what made you switch to golf?
So I was just better at golf than I was at baseball. Like I think I played in a rec league in like the summer between 8th and 9th grade. But yeah, I just decided that I was better at golf because I had played golf in my freshman year and was like half decent for a freshman. I had gotten the MVP award in my 8th grade season for baseball, but
Mhm.
like historically, I hadn't been very good at baseball. I was like the worst player on a good team,
Yeah.
and that season I was just the best player on a bad team. But yeah, for golf, I have had some success at that. I think my kind of peaked in my sophomore year. I was first team all conference, but yeah, the just once you start doing stuff for a long period of time, you kind of burn out, and I feel like being competitive is a part of that, where you are so like consumed in the sport and everything that you think is going along with it, and you just sort of lose interest after a while. And that was kind of what happened in my junior year, I feel like.
Well, for that to happen, you must have lost some sort of passion, some
Yeah.
sort of love.
So part of that was probably getting into lifting and the whole powerlifting stuff. I love that so much that a lot of the times when I was like had a choice between doing that and golf, I would just always do that. And for the summer between my junior and my senior year, I really didn't play that much golf going into that year. So I enjoyed that year the best, though. That's the thing, is like senior year was probably the best year of golf for me because like I just enjoyed it so much more now that I wasn't so consumed with it.
Yeah. Like you wanted to be good, you trained for it,
Yeah.
you prepared, like you still did everything to be up to par. So I guess that's kind of funny because we're talking about golf, but but you know what I mean. Like you did everything to prepare for it, so it's not like you lost that edge of competitiveness.
No,
But you just changed your mindset.
yeah, it was just I realized that I didn't have that much time left and that I wasn't going to play in college and I just needed to enjoy it while it lasted.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think a lot of people that play high school sports now sort of lose. I can see some guys on my team right now that get a little too competitive at times and just need to enjoy it a little bit more. And that's something that I wish I would have done beforehand. And I sort of see now, and that allows me to not be nearly as competitive and enjoy the baseball that we're doing right now, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that constructive competitiveness is some of the best. Like where you have a good attitude, you still want to be the best, but you're helping everyone along the way. You're not like trash talking the other team. You're not making them feel bad when you crush them or when you win. Well, it's kind of like a humble approach, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so good about rec sports is like just being around everybody else. Like in our league, a lot of the people have not played baseball before. I have played a lot of baseball before, so I just like want to help everybody get better. It's like I don't play baseball anymore, obviously, competitively at all. So it's just about making other people enjoy the game as much as I do. So,
Right.
yeah.
And we, to kind of clarify, you're the only one who's had experience.
Yeah. Your
I mean, there's
brothers
some
played
people
a
who have
little
played
bit before.
cricket.
But what did you say?
There's some people who played cricket before.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely tell the people that have played cricket because they can hit a lot better than the people that haven't.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's a nice experience because I mean, when you think about the rec leagues, you're not trying to win a medal or something. You're not trying to prove something. So it's really just about the exercise,
Yeah.
the sport, just enjoying it, and the bonds you share with everybody.
Yeah. Being around friends is probably the most important part of sports, I think. Once you
Yeah.
start to lose that, you start to lose interest and it's not quite as fun anymore. You see the guys at like the pro levels who aren't nearly as like good at friends with their teammates or whatever, and it like they just sort of self-deprecate over time. Like I don't know who, or if you know who like Antonio Brown is. He's a football player. Yeah, but he just sort of, it sounded like he wasn't on the best terms with all of his teammates and went downhill real quick. You see all these guys that are smiling and laughing with their teammates, and they're the people that they're often the ones that get followed by the most fans.
Right. And there's like team synergy too, like especially in football. Probably more so football than baseball because baseball is almost like a one person at a time, at least for batting.
Yeah, it's also much more international, so there's like a language barrier a lot of the time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But with football, it's It's like everybody goes all at once. So you need that
Exactly.
synergy.
You can, on a football field, you just like, yeah, you need to have that connection with your teammates, and that's where you can't be an individual on a football field because one person isn't going to make all the difference. It's a little bit different in like a basketball sort of sense where, like, if you have LeBron James on your team and a bunch of half decent players, odds are you're probably going to win most of the time.
Right.
But if you have a good quarterback and nobody that can catch the ball, it doesn't really matter. You need your receivers to get better.
Yeah, it's interesting how all the sports are different in that regard.
Yeah. Some
like
are much
can
more
literally carry.
team competitive as opposed to individual competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pay attention, the ones that are team competitive are a lot of times the ones that are the most popular, which is sort of interesting. I wonder why that is, but
the team ones?
Yeah. So like football is more popular than basketball, and a lot of times like people are in Canada are very consumed with hockey and stuff. A lot of the times the team sports are the ones that get watched the most.
Well, maybe it's just like more people to root for, I guess.
Yeah, it could be that.
And when there's multiple teams, it's like like the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you live in Pittsburgh or just that area in general of Pennsylvania. I mean, I guess that's a bad example because there's Philadelphia too. But what about like the Broncos in Colorado? Like there's no team in Wyoming or something. So this region all has allegiance to this team versus like think about golf. Like I don't know if you like Tiger Woods, good for you, but there's not many people to choose from,
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
And it's like Tiger Woods, he's a really good player, but it's not like you can have allegiance to that,
Yeah. A lot of times like if there's more people to root for and there's more like a sense of community a lot of the times. The strongest fan bases are the ones that like sort of all get together and root for their team together and have that competitive edge against somebody else that brings people together.
Yeah. And
like,
I mean, in a sense, if you think about it,
yeah,
we can take this further of like school spirit, like the school in general, or nationalism, like patriotism.
Yeah.
It's all about like a community that's competitive against other communities.
I like that example with the patriotism. That's a good one.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it. Like an entire nation comes together. Like you have the farmers to make the food, and then you have like the politicians that govern, and then you have, I don't know, you have like the trades that are like your plumbers and your janitors. They do like all of the like the labor work, and then the construction workers, and then you have the academics who come up with like vaccines, like for the viruses that come out. And together, they all form under one nation, basically.
Mm-hmm. We saw that with the essential workers and stuff during the pandemic, where everybody was just like suddenly so like what is the word? Like God. I still have my train of thought. I can't remember what the word I was going to use. But we're so grateful for the essential workers, and we weren't before because we realized how much they contribute to us, and not only just somebody who like cleans our place of work or whatever.
Right. And yeah, there's like nationalism's like the biggest example, I guess. But I don't know, you also have like university spirit where you see everybody wearing their swag, like their baseball caps and their sweaters. And then, they root for their football team even when they don't even know what a football is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's in that sense, it's competitiveness. We almost think of it as a bad thing, almost in our contemporary society. But it, in a sense, brings us together because, I don't know, it's like just because you go to one university doesn't mean you hate the people who go to your rival school. but that
Yeah.
competitive edge keeps you in check with them and makes you get better, you know?
Yeah. The urge to get better as a whole as opposed to just an individual that brings people together.
Right. And the same is true with the country example, where it's like, foreign relations. They're both individual nations that have to work on their own social, political, and economic issues. But they're not exactly enemies, at least not always. But they're still competitive. Like, you still want to be the best. You still want to have the best, like I don't know, gains per capita or something.
Yeah.
I say that like I know what I'm talking about, but
If we
you know what I mean.
if we sort of expand it to like an economic concept too, like the competitiveness is good for everybody because it makes things cheaper. Like
You
that's
mean
what
like the philosophy of like the free market or laissez-faire?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about is like you go to Starbucks, but there's also the Dunkin' option, and the competitiveness allows you to pay less over time because like they just sort of barter each other down. So that's
Yeah,
another good example of competitiveness is it's sometimes beneficial for a whole.
right. I heard an example a while back ago of like when the rich people, or let me say this first. So like when technology expands, so let's take it, TVs become 8K or whatever. I mean, if you ask me, I don't know
Yeah,
how much more high def
they're
actually
pretty good
get.
right now. But anyway, yeah.
Right, but like let's say 8K TVs and they're just extremely expensive. Nobody can buy it. Well, the rich people who can buy it will buy them and buy a lot of them. And that in turn generates a lot of cash flow in the economy. And eventually it actually trickles down. So with more people buying this, I don't know, there's like supply and demand. I kind of lost my train of thought, but basically it trickles down. I'm no expert on this, so I'm not an
Yeah.
economist, but in a sense, TLDR, too long didn't read. It trickles down, so then the lower classes can start affording these TVs.
Yeah.
And of course, as technology continues to go, when they go to like 16K or whatever, again, I don't know what I'm talking about. but then the 8K becomes outdated, and then you have poor people buying this stuff. Like
Yeah.
most poor people in America, if you think about it, a lot of them have smartphones. And a
Yeah, I think most
smartphone,
everybody does, but if you were to go back 15 years, it's what you were talking about. It's like only the richest of the rich had smartphones.
right?
Yeah,
It's like,
so go ahead.
yeah, it's just like a computer in your pocket. Like, it's crazy how much we take these things for granted.
Yeah.
But it's all about competition, I guess.
Yep. Competition drives things forward. It's how the flip phone got to the smartphone in the first place.
Right. And taking it back to the micro scale, like when you're just sitting in class and you see this guy getting A's on every test, and you're not doing horribly, but you might get like B's or C's. It's just
Yeah.
like, well, I hope I can be good enough to get that A. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, if I do this, then maybe I can.
I feel like it's interesting you brought that example because right now you and me are going through the college process.
Mm-hmm.
So like you see a lot of these people that are like getting accepted to like Harvard and like Brown and Yale or whatever, Stanford. You're like, man, like I sort of wish I could have gone to that school. I'm gonna work harder so I can get the same job as he's gonna get out of those schools. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's personally constructive if you're working harder.
But it can also be detrimental, of course, when it's like, oh, wow, I didn't make it.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. But
But I mean,
sometimes you
ultimately,
got to compromise a little bit at some point.
you think
Not
so?
all going to be 100% beneficial. You just I think in life that's something you need to learn at some point is, uh, yeah, eventually something's not going to go your way, and you sort of just need to learn to live with that instead of trying to make up for that one mistake, however long ago, that I didn't get into Harvard or whatever.
Right. But I mean, also consider this. It's like even if you go to a community college or something that's not even a private college, not even like it's not exactly low, but it's lower, I guess you could say. Like I really don't want to paint it in a negative light, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Even if you go to a community college, you can still rock it. Like if you work super hard and you have the dreams and ambition, you
Yeah.
can basically succeed way, way better than any Harvard or Stanford grad ever could.
Yep.
You just have to want it.
Definitely. Bill Gates didn't even go to college, so
Right.
yeah.
And I want to say this, I don't want that comment to be another one of those like cat poster statements, you know? Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the American dream, it works, guys." Like, you know, because it sounds too good to be true. It's like we've heard these speeches like done to death by this point. But if you really stop and think about it, it's got some truth to it.
Yeah.
Like if you
That's why
work
it's a
on yourself.
cliche.
Hmm?
I said that's why it's a cliche. Cliches have some truth behind them.
Right. If we work on ourselves, if we compete with ourselves and with others, if we really want to get something done or have a dream, we really can make anything happen.
Yeah.
And it's like back to sports. It's like if you go into it thinking I'm going to fail, I can't do this. Guess what, bud? You're not. You're
Yeah.
really not.
So that's interesting. Are you saying that confidence is the same thing as competitiveness?
It's not the same thing, but
But they're derived
it
from each other,
it's a
potentially.
big
Sorry.
no, I'm just trying to word this properly. It's not a direct cause, and it's not like a linear relationship, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it's not like confident people are competitive or you need to be confident to be competitive. But when you have confidence, it allows you to be more constructive with it.
I definitely agree with that. That's where I was going to go with it. Because I think confidence,
Or
healthy
destructive.
confidence is constructive the same way that healthy competition is constructive.
Right. But also it can be destructive.
Yeah.
Like a rich like I don't know, a high status politician of some sort, like they have actual authority. They could use that to really help people, or they could use
Mhm.
that to be tyrannical, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just up to where your morals are, I guess.
Yeah.
What do
That's
you
an
think about
interesting.
all that?
Yeah. I do think that if you have too much of one or the other, it leads to bad outcomes. So if you have a lot of confidence and a lot of competition, you're probably going to not be that great of a person to be around if you're always telling people how confident and competitive you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you have like really low confidence, that's probably not very good for yourself, and it's probably not very good for competition either because you're not going to be very competitive if you don't believe in yourself. So I think
Right.
it's sort of the answer lies in the middle of those, sort of in the middle of the bell curve. You can't be too much on one side or the other. You sort of got to have the balance in the middle so you can be an enjoyable person to be around, but yet you can better yourself in a constructive way.
Yeah. And do you think you've kind of like moved back and forth between the spectrum of like overconfidence and
Yeah,
No confidence.
definitely. Yeah. I don't. I've always been a half decent, confident person. I wouldn't say I'm overconfident or not confident enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I sort of reeled the competition aspect of it back into a healthier point where they're both sort of in the middle now. Whereas some people, you can sort of tell that they're not very confident and they just need to believe in themselves a little bit more.
Right.
I see that with a lot of people on baseball or on our baseball team where they sort of talk themselves into not being very good, but yet if they really just left the confidence like up to somebody else, then they would be a lot better and stop sort of telling themselves negative things.
Yeah. I believe I took a poll last season that we had. So we actually played in the fall and we brought it back this spring. But I believe I did a poll at the end, like when it became too cold and too dark to play. And one of the questions on the form that I had everyone take was like something along the lines of like, what surprised you once you started playing or something. And the majority of responses were actually, I thought I was going to suck, but I actually played quite well.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that. Yeah, so yeah, I think a lot of people didn't think they'd be very good at the start, but once you sort of saw all the people around you and that sense of community started building, you forgot about the non-confident person that you used to be, and you sort of got a little bit more confident again. It sounds like that's what the responses were.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of it might have just been fear or anticipation, like, well, I've never played baseball before. I know that none of these clowns have either, but
yeah, you can all learn together.
I don't know, I don't want to suck.
Yeah. I think it's good that people feel that way. I think that's the way that they should feel. They've definitely all gotten a lot better, and I'm glad for that.
Oh
sort
yeah,
of grows the game a little bit. You can have more fun with the future generations.
right.
Well, I think I've gotta get going, unfortunately, but
yeah. So
it's been really nice talking to you, Casey. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Yep.
And to those listening, thank you for doing so. This has been Competitiveness, and I'll see you guys next time.